Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Cars and Coffee with me, Kenny Brown. And if you're a car guy that wants to learn more about cars and performance, you're in the right spot, because over the next hour or so, I'm going to talk a little tech, answer your questions, all based off of my 40 plus years of professional motorsports and building really great cars. And we've got kind of a really cool lineup today. Based off of a question from last week, we're going to have Ben O'Connor as a special guest from Impact Racing, talking about helmets and head restraints. For the memorabilia, where M69 is on the docket for today. We had somebody ask about M69 last week, and we thought, well, that's one of my coolest cars I ever built. So why don't we give that a little bit of feature today? And then also we've got we're going to a little tech on JRZs and a little bit different spin on the JRZs today. And then, of course, answer your questions. We have a lot of questions from the Speed Therapy Society. That's where the questions come from for Saturday mornings, and that's sort of how I shape what I'm going to talk about. And if you're not a member of Speed Therapy Society, please join. It's a great group. We're going to be doing more and more as time goes on with that. But the next big thing is the big reveal of my new suspension is going to happen just to the Speed Therapy Society people and not the general public. And we'll have, that's going to be later in February. And I think next week, Carrie said registration will be open. It'll be a special closed event, and it'll be on Zoom, not Facebook. So it'll be more like kind of a more of an intimate type thing. So join the society, send me in your questions. Of course, remember, if you got questions today, send them in, and I'll try to answer if I can live. And then also, if you have any questions for Ben when he's on, send questions in for him too. So moving down my little list, I think we're also simulcasting, tri-casting, I guess we'd say. We're on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and then also Impact Racing's Facebook page. So it's kind of like a triple header today. And also welcome to all the Impact Racing folks out there. We're glad you can join us. We love Impact, so and we'll talk about that more. The artwork today is something that's kind of super extra special. We had a good friend that we hadn't seen in a long time, also one of our trusted advisors over the year, drop by one morning and bring back a piece of artwork that's very special. After I got sick, he's been keeping it kind of safe for us. And, he's in and out of town so much, like we hadn't seen him for a long time, and he dropped this off. And this is what it is. Now, let me try to explain. For anybody that's been to Indianapolis, Union Jack's pub is kind of was the place. Back in the 90s when we got here, that was the place to go. And it was, it's kind of like what's called the wind tunnel. Some race team managers would not let their mechanics go to Union Jacks because it, quote, the wind tunnel. Everybody start chatting back and forth and give away secrets. Anyway, there was a guy that had been kind of a fixture there, Ron Burton, who's an incredible artist. In fact, the whole Union Jacks pub had just a bunch of his artwork along with his helmet collection, which was extensive. Anyway, long story short, Kerry went to Ron in '96 and commissioned this painting. And it's called Kenny's Wild Horses. It's in acrylic, and it's hard to see. It was actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of my Mustangs in there. And those are all Mustangs that were in the media at one point in time. So that's kind of a special piece. It's me, it's irreplaceable. So yeah, Kenny's Wild Horses by Ron Burton. It's pretty incredible. He has a very unique style of painting. That's I don't think unmatched by anybody.
Will you let the Impact people know that Ben will be on about 10 or quarter?
For the people on Impact, Ben will be on in just a little bit. We need to get through our normal housekeeping stuff and some questions, and the questions lead into Ben. So moving right along, the share thing. If you like what we're going to be talking about, please share it with your friends. There's a little button up there that you can click on the button and just invite all your friends to share with it. That's been pretty popular. A lot of people do that. I think it's pretty cool. So let's dive into, I think the first story today is M69. this is absolutely one of the prettiest and by far the most expensive car that I've ever built. And this was a concept I did for the SEMA show in 2005. And the story behind it is, I was at that time, I was back and forth to Detroit quite a bit, knew a lot of people up there. And there was this one group of folks I knew that were trying to, put a 69 body panels, steel body panels onto a 05 Cobra or 05 Mustang. And I thought, that's pretty cool, but for me, I got to get big tires. So we ended up doing a project. It was like 6-8 months. Seemed like it took forever, where we created a wide body 69 version of the 05 Mustang. And what made it so unique and incredibly expensive is that it actually started in clay. The body stuff was done in clay, and then the clay was put onto, the whole clay, fiberglass, that whole thing, and then the final sculpting was actually done on the car. You're making me dizzy.
I just wanted to preview.
So, it's, and also what we did, we introduced our, the latest Gen 4 AGS 4.0 suspension was on that car in 2005 at SEMA. But the bodywork, got all the attention. And, back then we had really wide tires. 18-inch was like the big deal back then. Of course, this is about 15 years ago. So we got super wide 18-inch tires, and you can just see by the front fenders how much we added to the body. If we could go to the next slide. And looking at the back, if you take a good look, you can see kind of where the tail lights end and where the body keeps going out. And this was done. The guys that did this were amazing, extremely talented. But get up to Detroit and get all these concept car building people, and they're really good at what they do. But it was, I can just say, it was stupid expensive. But my gosh, what a gorgeous looking car! Not only was it gorgeous, it drove. It was amazing to drive. We've had every editor that drove the car was just blown away. In fact, I think Pete Epple got to do an article on it down at VIR, and he said it was just the absolute best driving car he's ever been in. And that was that was the beginning of our Gen 4 AGS 4.0. And anybody that's got rear grip kit, front grip kit in their car know what I'm talking about. Gosh, you're killing me, Carrie. I'm not in control. Okay, can we just go slowly through this? So there's a good shot at the front. Next, please. And I think you can see this kind of demonstrates just how wide the front was. Also, the big air vents we put in. And I'm always talking about getting air out of the hood to help front downforce. Well, by putting this in right behind the flares, what that does is there's high pressure builds up in the very front of the tire, rotating tire, and that helps bleed off the pressure that builds up in the wheel well. Okay, let's go to the next one. And in the engine, we really didn't do a lot to that. We did headers, cold air. We did a tune. I think we were at 385. Is that right? No, what did they come with? Gosh, 300 horsepower, yeah. So we got up to like 380, 385. However, it was a friend of mine bought it a number of years back and has been looking after it very lovingly. And they went ahead and did a little engine work, added an extra 100 horsepower. Thing is just really a little rocket ship now. And the other little thing I might mention is this car is, my friend that has it is out of space. And we hear that a lot. So the car is for sale again. I just can't tell you how beautiful this car is in person. And there's the dash. It's a serialized Kenny Brown car. It was originally called the GT4 CSR 69. Well, we always kind of nicknames our cars. That was too long, so our nickname for it is just M69. The plaque under the hood. It's a gorgeous car. And there's just, he went too fast. That's just a smattering of it's been in a lot of magazines. That's just a smattering of the magazine articles. But boy, like I say, if you know anybody that might be interested in a real piece of automotive history and a significant part of my history. The M69, I can tell you that what it costs to build, you add at least 6 zeros and then some. Because when you start doing, body, starting out of clay and having like 3 or 4 guys sculpting the clay, then going to fiberglass and putting that on the car and doing the final sculpting on the car, it was pretty extensive. Now, the plan was to actually take that to market, but unfortunately, that was at the end of 05, and that's when I had some serious health issues and had to sort of drop out for a while. And the car just sat. I mean, it sat, and then we brought it back and tuned it up, and then Michael really liked the car, and so we kind of sold it to him to take care of, and he's out of space. So yeah, share this with some of your friends if you think they might want a real piece of American automotive history and one of the most beautiful Mustangs you will ever cast your eyes on. No matter wherever we went with it, at like car shows and anything, it is a total camera magnet. I mean, I can't tell you anywhere we go how many people take pictures of that car. That tells you something special when they're camera magnet and people drive or walk past other cars just to look at this one. So I think I probably rattled on enough about M69, but it's an amazing car with an amazing history. So, and like I say, it was a concept that was supposed to go to market, but unfortunately, that whole stupid health thing just got in the way. And it, like a number of my projects went on the shelf, like my rear suspension went on the shelf back then, that we're going to talk about. I'm going to sign up for it in Speed Therapy Society. Next week, the registration will be open, and then towards the end of February, we'll have a reveal, probably on a Thursday evening. So I know ahead of time. The reveal party. The Speed Therapy Academy alumni people have already seen it. In fact, most of them bought one. They just seen the prototype. But what I'll introduce you to is the rear production pieces. And I can tell you that the shift from prototypes to production is it's a big step. And this is a pretty complex piece. It's pretty cool. What it does is totally amazing. So if you're just joining us, I got that without you telling me. If you're just joining us, I'm Kenny Brown. This is Cars and Coffee, and we're talking tech, answering questions, and just being kind of all-around car guys. And if you see the little share button, share that. Send some thumbs up in the air, a little love. We like all that. And think it on you have to put thumbs up on the.
Yeah, just right above where they're looking.
Right above where you're looking is where the thumbs up go. Yeah. So here we go. Yeah, I already knew that, Carrie.
Okay.
What gives me pause, I keep telling people that she writes left-handed and I have right-handed eyes. So it takes me a while to adjust. And we got to get to our questions. Okay, well, one of my questions is why Ben's here.
Okay, well, go ahead. We'll
I'll zip through the questions. Herschler has a question on Coli-Over setup that I'll talk about a little later with GRZs. Wendy said she had found something about pressure cats for late model cars. We'd like to know more about that. It's a wheel, moving up to 18-inch wheels, 18 by 9, 18 by 10. He wants to know what the best tire size to have minimum difference in speedometer reading. Well, it's hard to tell unless we know what the diameter is of the tires you have now. But there's an easy way to do it. Going to tire rack, and you look up a tire. I'll give you an example. Like what we ran a lot of on the 10-inch 18 by 10 on SN95s was a 285/35. That's like a 25.9-inch tall tire. That's pretty close. That's a little shorter than OE. But a 285/40, if you can find them, like 27-inch tall tire. So you need to look up the size of your tire under the specs part and what the diameter is, and then look at your options on the 18s and try to come as close as you can. Let's see. Now, Jay, this is another tire question. What do I recommend for street tires that are trackable? I'm looking for something to replace Sport Cup 2s on my 19 GT350, something with a little more tread life. There's always a compromise between grip and tread life. Sport Cup 2s are a really grippy tire, but like they're not the most long-lived tire. I've got a couple suggestions, and it just kind of all depends. The interesting thing is the Sport Cup 2 has a tread wear rating of 180, which is pretty low, but on we use a lot of Pirellis. We also use Michelins, but we use a lot of Pirellis, and the tread rating on the P0 Corsa is a 60. And I know, to me, that lasts longer than the 180 on the Sport Cup 2s. The other weird thing is the Pirelli Trofeo R's also have a tread rating of 60, and I can tell you that the Corsas outlast the Trofeos like 2 to 1. So I mean that the Trofeo, the Pirelli Corsas might be something to try. I mean, it's a true track tire. I mean, you don't give up very much grip off of the Sport Cup 2s with the Corsas, and they have some tread, so it's like a street track. It's a track street tire. Let's call it that. If you're looking for a pure street tire, what we use the most of is the Michelin Pilot S4. Really good tire, but again, that's got a tread rating of 300. It's going to work on the street. It's going to work on the track. But the level of grip is going to be significantly less than on the Sport Cup 2s. So it's kind of like you have to do weigh your a friend told me a long time ago that life is a series of compromises, and when it comes to cars, that is pretty much it. Let's see, Dan wanted to know, off topic, some of us do work on our own cars. Where are bolts that can be used once? And where are the bolts that have only been used once in the chassis and maybe the engine? Well, I can tell you there are a lot of them. And what I mean by bolts that are used once, there's something that Ford has gone to of late called a torque. Just dropped right out of my head. Yield to torque bolt. And to give you an example, we just put new cam bolts on Cliff's engine, and the yield to torque was you torque it to 30 pounds plus 90 degrees. And because the torque is stretching the bolt to a specific rate, they're throwaways. The best thing I can tell you is just refer to a manual, workshop manual. I know on the suspension, we don't worry about that because we pretty much replace all the factory hardware with grade 8 hardware. So, I mean, there's a lot of them, I can tell you that. But you're going to have to just, if you're working on something, find a manual and see which bolts are torque to yield. I think somebody once told me if it's gray, you throw it away. I don't know if it's true or not, but I thought that was kind of clever. Let's see, Oscar. It's another good one. Oscar is a 2003 GT convertible. He wants it to go faster, how to do it, and do it economically. Okay, we're getting into this compromise thing again. Economically and speed sort of don't go together. I think you want to change that from economically to cost effective. Because when I was a young lad and doing cars back in the 60s and 70s, when I always went to Charlie's Speed Shop. I mean, speed shops were the place to go back then. Not only did they have the parts, but it's kind of like everybody kind of gathered and chatted. But they had a great big sign up on the wall. It said, "Speed costs money. How fast can you afford to go?" And I can tell you that stuck with me, and that is as true today as it was back then. However, there are cost-effective things you can do to improve the performance of your car. That's something that if you want to set up a 15-minute consult, I'd be happy to talk to you about it a little bit. But remember, for me, it's going to be chassis, suspension, wheels, tires, brakes are the first thing to do before you start adding power, because just doing that little bit to the car just makes a huge difference. And I'll have a good example of that next week. And I'll tell you about that in a little bit. Okay, now, this is Gary's question, which is a holdover from last week. And Gary asked, he said, helmet recommendations for first-time track day driver. Well, I can tell you from my perspective, as a first day or an advanced driver, the helmet recommendations are going to be the same. The only difference is budget. Because, I mean, you got to keep the noggin safe. But I know somebody knows more about this than I do. And he is our special guest today, Ben O'Connor, who we have known for ages. In fact, we first met Ben when we started working with Bear Brakes, I think back in the 90s. But now he's an Impact rep with a great company, and great products. So if we could have Ben join us. Hey.
Hey, everybody.
Good morning.
Hey, how you doing? Thought I would join you in the meeting here. Kind of wearing something a little stylish here. This is a helmet from the 2013 Indianapolis 500 that's been autographed by the drivers there. We'll use this to kind of go over a few things today too. We'll probably need to back up so everybody can see it. All right. That just messed my hair up there.
It's called helmet hair. Anybody who's ever been on track knows all that helmet hair.
There we go. So there's your first helmet lesson of the day, or issue helmet. How to prevent helmet hair? No,
Can't. It's impossible.
Yeah, it is impossible. Yeah, I've been doing that a long time. It is definitely impossible.
The only trick to helmet hair is as soon as you get out of the car, your head's sweaty. Just comb it real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So put my glasses back on here so I can see it. All right. So I believe the intro or the question at hand or task at hand here was maybe some tips on buying a first helmet, right? So Kenny did encapsulated it pretty well. I mean, that's really the main keys of it is, you want to buy. Always said you want to buy as much helmet as you can afford. There are differences in higher end helmets, lower end helmets. However, like most things, there is a cost diminishing returns, right? You're going to get that 80% for that first initial expense, and then everything after that, right? You're getting that extra 20%. In the world of helmets, from the entry level, at least with ours, throughout the all the way up to the top level stuff, in terms of impact resistance, right? You're going to get equal performance and protection as far as that goes, right? There's no huge benefits to going with a $1,600 carbon fiber helmet versus a $400 fiberglass helmet. However, there are secondary considerations that come into play when you're looking at a more expensive helmet like that. Some of it may just be features, maybe as simple as just cosmetics. The cosmetics takes a little bit more to manufacture, so the cost comes from that. The look of the helmet, in terms of carbon fiber, but one of the biggest things is weight. And like anything else related to the automotive world and performance, I used to have a saying where I used to work in the sprint car world. I think it costs a lot to build horsepower, try to make something light, right? And that holds true with helmets as much as anything else. But there is a benefit to having a lightweight helmet in that it helps prevent secondary injuries. You want to prevent impact type injuries with the helmet, of course. Everybody understands that. But a lot of injuries in an event are also caused by head whippage, when your head's moving around. And the heavier the helmet, the more likelihood you are to maybe get an injury that way, a neck injury, or even a basilar injury where the neck enters the back of the skull there. This is why FHRs were developed and to help prevent those types of injuries. But they can't prevent every motion. They do a really good job of preventing that frontal movement, so it comes frontal FHR, frontal head restraint, but not as good off axis. They're pretty good off to maybe 45 degrees or so, but when you start getting 90 degrees, there's not a lot of protection to really keep your head from moving around. This is why you've seen the advent of like halo style seats and driver's net, things like that, to help prevent that motion as well. So having a lighter weight helmet slows that velocity down, helps prevent that, but it also helps prevent or slows or reduces the impact when you do hit something. Obviously, if it's lighter, not moving as fast, the impact if you do hit the roll bar padding or whatever that is going to be at a lower velocity as well. So that's one of the things. But the other things you want to look at is the fitment of the helmet. Obviously, you want to make sure that the helmet fits correctly, and really the primary importance is around the crown of your head, right? You want to make sure the helmet fits really well there. And Kenny, I don't know if you're okay with me going to helmet fitment. I don't know if that was the scope of what you wanted to discuss, or if you had.
Oh, sure. I mean, and it's, I also want you to talk about Snell 20, because I know that's out.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I got to get a new helmet this year too.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we want to fit the crown of the head, right? That's the most important thing. And one of the tests that people will do is you can put the helmet on, and you should be able to get your thumb up in there. But just a little bit, just about maybe to the first knuckle. If you can stick your knuckle up in there, then it's definitely too loose. If you can't get it up in there, it's probably too tight. Or if it hurts, if it's to the point of pain, then obviously it's too tight. Now, keeping that in mind, you want the helmet tight. Tighter is better than looser, and that also helps prevent concussions, in the sense that we're trying to eliminate in any event, there's a series of impacts that happen when the helmet comes in contact with anything, right? Because the helmet shell stops, your skull continues to move inside the helmet till it makes contact with the liner of the helmet, and then your brain inside the skull then also continues to move. So you have this multiple impact event that happens whenever you have something. So if you have a tight helmet, you can at least reduce one of those motions, that secondary one where the skull moves inside the helmet. You can greatly reduce that one. And anytime you do that, you're reducing, without getting too technical, harmonics and the motion, right? So that's real important. So you want to do that. And with our helmets too, getting back to the fitment, get this right. And then we have adjustable, or not adjustable, but different size cheek pads you can use to customize that fit around the jaws and ears. So if you get a helmet that feels really good here, but it's really tight on the ears or the jaws, we can do a thinner cheek pad. Likewise, if it's really good here and you've got a lot of space there, we have thicker cheek pads to help tune up that fitment. One of the things we'll get into Snell here real quick. We get a lot of questions, but there's a lot of mystery regarding Snell and what it is. And I'm going to briefly go over the Snell program first and what the objective is in doing that. And I don't work for Snell, so I'm not going to get into anything in depth. If you want to, Snell has a lot of information on their website. I encourage people to go there and do some research there. You'll really learn a lot about what goes into the process and what they look for, the different criteria. But the idea being is every 5 years, Snell changes the criteria for the helmets to meet. They change the standards that they must meet, right? Every 5 years. The idea being that the helmets get incrementally safer every 5 years. So technically, now this isn't 100%, but in theory, the helmet that you would buy today in 2020 helmet would be, in theory, safer than a 2015 or 2010 or 2005. And this is one of the reasons why the sanction bodies have adopted a policy of only allowing typically the current Snell and prior Snell versions. So if you go to the track and they say, hey, your helmet's no longer allowed to be run, that's why they're following Snell guidelines, which is wise, just to ensure that you've got the most current technology. But also helmets they don't wear out in the sense like tires and things like that, but they are largely composites. In those composites, you're dealing with fiberglass and resins and things like that. They can harden or dry out and change. And you've got styrofoam and liners, and that stuff can degrade over time. So it is a good idea to change the helmet periodically anyways, depending on what you're doing. Now, in certain sports like off-road, they replace them a lot more frequently than they do in other sports, just because of they get a lot of debris and damage to the helmet that way too. So if you've got a nick on the helmet or something like that, a big chunk out of it, and then you definitely need to replace it, right? So that's the real big deal. And for manufacturers as us, we have to meet that challenge every 5 years, and it keeps us going in developing better products for the motorsport industry.
I think I'm muted.
I am.
Oh, I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
Get this. This is as bad as Zoom. You're always in a Zoom meeting and you call on somebody and
Yeah. Every platform's different.
Carrie said she muted me because you hear me slurping my coffee. This is Cars and Coffee.
Amen.
But why don't you give just a real brief summary of the head and neck restraint and how important that is?
Yeah, so right, we touched on that a little bit, right, as a means to prevent some of those neck type injuries, or what really, to get more specific, it's a basilar skull fracture, and that is the base of your skull, the back, that's your basilar, and that's the point where your spine meets the bottom of your skull. That's the injury that killed Dale Earnhardt, and that's probably the most notable instance of someone dying from that type of injury in motorsports, and was also the catalyst which drove the whole movement for FHRs to be used in motorsports here in the States. They'd already been doing it in Europe a little bit, right? It's already gained some traction over there. But that really highlighted the importance of preventing these types of injuries. It is, like a helmet, I shouldn't say next, like a helmet and like restraints is probably say, as many lives or more lives than anything else out there. I mean, the technology absolutely works. It's very simple, and I'll go over that real briefly. What happens in FHR, and I'm sorry I don't have one here today, the device sits on your shoulders. The restraints go over the top of it. There are tethers that fasten your helmet. Now, any helmet you buy, SA 2015 or 2020 or 2015 or newer, has the anchor points built into the helmet. That is a requirement for SA 2015 and forward. So you would have these anchors on your helmet that the tethers would clip into. Now, in an event, what happens is that your body moves underneath the restraints. The restraints actually holds the device in place. Your body moves underneath. That takes up that tension in the tethers, and that prevents that forward frontal movement. And by doing that, that's what prevents the basilar injury. Interesting to know that there are different types of devices, and they do it in different ways. The most common one is, everybody knows, the originator of the technology is Hans. And that is like what I just described. There are other devices on the market. Some of them strap on to you. They can have some effective, they are effective. Many would argue they're not as effective. And they limit motion, and they restrict your movement somewhat, because they don't stay with the restraints, because they move with the body. The tethers have to be pretty short to prevent that type of injury. So you lose some mobility and motion and looking around, and some mobility. So for that reason, you see a lot of people choose to go that other way. So that's just a brief description of how those work.
Okay, cool. Well, I think getting back to the original question, what does Impact have as, let's say, a good first helmet? Looking from a budget standpoint, somebody's just getting into, but they want the quality of a helmet, but they don't want to pay $1,500 for carbon fiber. I know you've got a real good one, because I think we've got it on our website. Yeah.
So one of the most popular helmets we sell, and a little bit of price point, but it doesn't shortchange how much, is our 1320. It's a simpler design. It's fairly clean looking. Doesn't have a lot of bumps and bells and whistles and stuff like that, but it is vented. It has a larger eye port, so it's got really good visibility. It is a fiberglass design. We do build it right in Indianapolis. We are a U.S. manufacturer. One of the few, I don't know, I think we may be the only helmet manufacturer that can make that claim right now, in terms of making 95% of our helmets here in right here in the States, let alone in Indianapolis. Same interior, same liner, the styrofoam, if you will, for layman's term, as the $1,600 carbon fiber helmet. So again, you're not shortchanging yourself on that impact resistance, that element of the safety aspect of the helmet. You're not shortchanging yourself in terms of visibility. We use the same shield as the expensive helmets. and comfort. The liners that we use are really plush, fire-rated interior, unlike anything that you're going to find in any of the other brands. And it's for that reason we get a lot of repeat customers due to the comfort of the helmet. Many, many times people will comment on how comfortable the helmet is. Now
yeah, you mentioned ventilation. I think it's all gone now, but somebody asked about ventilation because it's hot in Phoenix.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Phoenix, so I can relate. Yeah, the ventilation is good on that. Now, one of the things that, and this is really becoming really popular. It's always been popular in off-road, but it's becoming really, really popular now in all forms of motorsports is a forced air helmet. And that's where you take, you'll take a standard helmet and maybe there's an addition of a side air piece on here. I mean, it almost looks like a vacuum cleaner
Too much space.
outlet, or on top of the helmet, or like our helmet, the design that we originated, we do it offset a little bit, and that's for roof clearance. You have additional roof clearance. It's a game changer. Anybody that's been on track a lot, in a hot environment in the summertime, it's certainly in race cars, we get very little insulation. As we know, the interior temperatures can get really high. Having fresh air pumped in the helmet is a game changer. It really makes a big difference in terms of comfort in keeping your head cool, which again, that's one of those other secondary safety aspects, right? The best way to prevent injury is prevent an event from happening, and the best way to prevent an event from happening is to be on your game, be alert and comfortable, and all of that, right? So you can concentrate on the task at hand, even if it's subconsciously. If something's bothering you, that can distract you from being focused on driving. So real important. So anyways, yeah, forced air is awesome for that. But all of our helmets are vented. They all have vents in them for that reason, so they can keep the driver cool.
Question on belts. We may have to have you back on that. 3 inches versus 2 inches. Really quickly, I'll say 2 inches are every bit as strong as 3 inch. I prefer 2 inch because they work on the Hans and they're easier. But I think we might have to have Ben. Actually, Ben did an entire master class on safety and went all through all the different types of harnesses and belts in our Speed Therapy Academy. And do we got time? Yeah. Okay. Why don't you throw it a quick answer for? Here's the question: what are your thoughts on 2 inch belts? Are they as safe as 3 inch? They look like they would be. Okay, thanks. They look like they would be easy to adjust, being narrower. I'm considering a 5-point cam lock, shoulder mounts. Yeah, Ben can answer that, and I can say I think we've got those on the website. If not, we can get you hooked up. But go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, of course, the last part of that question, affordable, is typically a relative term, of course. Again, we manufacture everything right here in the States. All the restraints we manufacture right there in Indianapolis. Cam lock restraints from us start around $299. 2 inch, I could speak for an hour on 2 inch alone, but I'm going to run through this real briefly and kind of go over the premise of it and why it's preferred and why you're seeing it. We used almost exclusively in some forms of motorsport. NASCAR, it's a requirement. You have to run 2 inch. Can't even show up with 3 inch. And here's the brief synopsis of why that is. The idea of it, when it comes to being restrained in a vehicle, the focus is on the hip more than anywhere else, and it's because it's the largest load carrying capacity part of the body, for one, but it has to be restrained properly because things happen during an event that can cause the hip bones to rotate, which can create spinal injuries. There are also instances where if the belt gets up too high, it can create internal injuries. If it gets up over the top of your hip bone, then the iliac crest, to get technical, then that can get in your stomach. And that really is one of the primary functions of anti-sub belts, which a lot of people don't know. That's really what they're about. So the 2 inch restraint, what it does is helps keep the belt below that iliac crest, for one. And again, that helps prevent that internal injury from it coming up over the top of the iliac crest, but it also helps prevent pelvic tilt in a forward motion event. to prevent lower back injury in an event like that. The other side benefit is that you can absolutely get a 2-inch belt tighter than you can 3-inch. And the reason being is, if I'll try to do it and show you here on the camera, but if you imagine, let me see here, right? If you take your hand, right, the full width hand, and set it in the cup of your hand, to push it down in there, you've got to distort your hand to get it to sit down in that cup. Now, if you pull in a finger, take the 3 fingers in there, you'll notice that immediately it sits down in the bottom of the cup of your hand much easier. And that's the same premise with the restraint. By going the 2-inch, it's already down in that hip pocket, the ilium of the hip bone. And that just allows you, because it's already closer to the surface, tighter to the body, and you don't have to distort the belt, you can just get them tighter. And having a tight restraint, that Kenny will attest, is paramount to safety, particularly in the laps, because again, that keeps things from moving around. Also, again, that large load carrying capacity of the body, it's what keeps you anchored in the seat. Even if you run a loose restraint shoulders, if they're wonky for some reason, having a really tight lap belt is really going to help in those situations. You want the shoulders to be proper, of course, but you can get away with more that way than you can the other. You want the laps proper, you want them good and tight, whereas the shoulders, if they're a little loose but your laps tight, you're probably going to be okay. The other way around, there's a lot more likelihood that you're going to get an injury. Can't hear you, Kenny. Kenny, your mic's off.
What are we just talking about? But yeah, I was saying that our producer kind of was asleep at the wheel over there. Yeah, I've been using 2-inch belts since forever, before they're even popular. I just like them a lot more. I'm not a big guy, and they just seem to work a lot better. How did you actually get going in this whole industry? Because I know we met when you were at Bear Brakes, which is seems like years ago.
Yeah, you know what? I am a lifer for sure. I got into the sport through my first car, the original sport compact Volkswagen Beetle. Got one when I was 16 and immediately started working on it. But I'd come up racing BMX and all that stuff. My father's mechanic and a racer, boat racer. So I'd always been around that stuff and working, tinkering on stuff my whole life. So for me, that was a likely path. And I had friends that also met in high school that were into that stuff. My first job was at a really large mail order Volkswagen outfit back there. I'm going to date myself, in the early 80s. They're Station 1. Some of you may recognize the name. And then, but from there, I've been, in the industry the whole time, typically working, places for long periods of time. I worked for Klein Engines, where we did sprint car engines and, drag race engines, high performance stuff. That was a really cool job. I was engine sales and designer. I actually got to design a lot of the engines there for things outside the sprint car world, drag racing, things like that. So that was really cool. I got a really strong technical background, knowledge of the internal combustion engine, and I get in all kinds of crazy stuff and rod angles and, cylinder flow rates and all that stuff and how it all correlates to each other. And then from there, I went to Bear Brakes, and so I spent 11 years. So, a strong technical background in the braking systems as well. I can explain exactly what head film transfer is and, warp rotors, that phenomenon. I can explain that to you and all how that stuff works too. So it's, for me, really was a way to use my my quest for knowledge, technical knowledge, and tinkering and things like that. So I've done some motocross over the years, competition side of things, and of course, working on those as well. So, but yeah, that's a lengthy answer to your question, but that's how I got involved in the industry.
Well, that's awesome. I think, like I say, Ben was one of our did a master class in the. I was you again, wasn't I?
No, you weren't.
Oh, okay. Ben was one of our special guests in the master class for the Speed Therapy Academy, and I can tell you he spent maybe 35, 40 minutes talking about safety stuff, and that wasn't even enough. We'll have in the next academy. I'm sure he's going to be back as one of our master class special guests. And I think we need to probably keep moving along. So, what? Oh, so I'm going to say thanks so much. You know, we've been friends for a long time, and you're a wealth of knowledge, and we really appreciate you coming on this morning. So again, a big hand round of applause for Ben, everybody.
Right on. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'll hang in the wings here if something comes up. Let me know. Watch the rest of the
Thanks.
All right.
So yeah, if they have questions for Ben.
So if you got any more questions for Ben, we're kind of we'll run over. We always run over, so that's not a problem. Send them in. I saw a couple of questions come up. Herschel wanted to know if I was going to watch the 24 Hours of Daytona. It is already programmed into my DVR. So it's you going to watch the 24, Ben?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll catch a little bit of it here and there. My biggest problem is I'm not a good fan. I want to do it, so I watch that stuff, and all I can think about is being there doing it. And I can't sit still, as probably people probably noticed just from this deal. I move around a lot. I've always got to be doing something, so I'm not a sit on the couch and watch TV thing. But that is one of the races that absolutely pop in and out of, you know. For those 24 hours. I love the machines. I mean, I just think they're the most incredible, some of those incredible vehicles on the planet. You know, I like the most extreme aspects of motorsports. I think, like most people do, you're attracted to top fuel dragsters more than you are, you know, some of the other stuff. And, you know, but I appreciate all forms of motorsports. So yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks. I have it a VCR, DVD, VCR, whatever it is. I programmed it into my cable stuff because I don't have time to sit and watch it. I just don't. But I'll be watching it for the next week. Kind of pop in and out, you know, and watch a little bit here, a little bit there. Try to keep up with it. But I can tell you, it's kind of like bittersweet watching that because up until I had my health issues in 2005, I was at the 24 Hours of Daytona every single year. I worked for a lot of different teams in 24 hours. And if I didn't have anybody to work for, I would just be there kind of hanging out with people I knew. And somehow I'd always end up finding something to do. But yeah, really, I kind of miss it. I think a real quick story. One year I was working with a team, it was a prototype team. And Kerry went down with me, and I said, look, these guys aren't really good. I mean, they're okay, but they're not really super good. And I think we might be at Carrabba's having dinner about 11 o'clock at night. Well, I made a couple of really good mechanical calls during the night, and the car ran all the way up to, I think, the 20th hour, maybe 19th or 20th hour, and then the car broke. So, but yeah. Yeah, so we didn't get our dinner at Carrabba's because there's really good Carrabba's right there in Daytona. So, okay, thanks, Ben. And I saw somebody asked a question about the new rear suspension. If you weren't with us earlier, yes, we're getting very close. Like I said, I wanted to introduce you guys to a real production piece, and building production pieces versus prototypes is a whole different deal. And we want to have some other things to go with that. We will be opening registration. It's going to be a closed event on Zoom, so more like, you know, more intimate on Zoom, and it'll be either the last or next to the last Thursday in February, I think. We'll have more information on that coming up, but registration will open next week, and you will have to register because it will be a closed event. It's strictly for Speed Therapy Society people. We introduced it to the Speed Therapy Academy folks earlier on. They got the first look. They saw the prototypes, and I can tell you, the first production lot is 10, and we already sold that out. I mean, that was like boom, it's gone. So we're going to be building it because of the complexity, and you'll see why we're going to be building with lots of 10 initially, and then as we get, you know, a little more volume up, then we'll probably increase that. But so I should say probably the deposits are open for the next 10, but you don't even know what it is yet. So anyway, you have to be a member of the society, and it will be a closed event. So moving along, we're almost running out of time, but not really because I go long all the time. So what we haven't got to yet, we've got to Ben JRZs, and this is a little lead into here, and you'll see why. Everybody knows I have asthma, and it's drizzly. It's been cold and drizzly and rainy, and it just kills me. I want to show. We did the strains last week, and we've got kind of a special set of JRZs this week that are going out to Paul. And the question I think Carrie posted is, are JRZs just for V8s? And the answer is no. Paul's got a V6, I think it's a 2012 V6 Mustang, that he's actually going to be a special guest next week to tell us about his adventures of the V6 Mustang and running against V8 Mustangs, he's got kind of a cool story. But anyway, he's got a rear grip kit and front grip kit. He has some okay shocks and springs, but he's doing a whole banana. He's moving up to JRZs and the new rear suspension. He was one of the first 10. And what I wanted to show you, of course, with the JRZs, we do the same thing as the strange I showed you last week. We've got the torsion release bearing, we got the main spring, the spacer, and then the helper spring. And then with the JRZs, you get this cool little adjuster on top. And then on the front, it's pretty much the same thing. And you get coilovers from me, and they come just like this, come pre-assembled, and I put an initial adjustment in them. You see, this is a single adjustable, so it's got rebound on the top. And first of all, I asked a question about adjusting single adjustable shocks, and that's like way too big of a question to try to do just on Saturday morning. I know we talk about that in the Speed Therapy Academy, and shock adjustment. It's sort of like an art, magic, and guessing all at the same time. When you get shocks, I give you an initial adjustment, sort of like a base adjustment, and then along with that, there's a little nifty packet of stuff comes with JRZs. It's got my setup sheet on there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it gives the spring rates and the initial adjustment, and then a little bit of a tuning guide, like 101 tuning. This is kind of unique because it's a V6, or it's a track car. So I dropped down from the 650 to a 600. We'll see how that works. If it's a little too much spring for them, we can always back that down to 550. But I want to see more spring you put in the Mustang, the better they turn, the faster they are. And typically, with a live axle car, if it's a 600 front, I'm looking at 375, 400 rear, depending on a whole bunch of things: wheel size, tire compound, horsepower. I always do the front springs and then make an adjustment with the rear springs and how I want the car to work. Well, for this particular car, I don't know if you can see that or not. Front spring rate 600, rear spring rate 600. We'll talk about that when we talk about the new rear suspension. So you run the same spring rate front and rear, which is exactly what I do on my IRS cars, my 99 to 04 Cobra IRS cars. We'll run the same spring rate front and rear. If the front's too low, the rear might be 25 pounds higher in the back, but IRS cars will spring in the same front and rear. So here's the live axle Mustang with spring like an IRS car. You'll find out about that when we do the reveal. Something else, when we get this, you see a nice little kit. There's a little spanner wrench, and see this little packet with a little blue thing in there. It's a little extra I throw in. The adjuster knobs on the top, now you have to take them off to take the shock off or install it. I don't know if you can see a little tiny, itsy tiny hole. There's two set screws that hold the adjuster knob on, and they are a 1.5 millimeter set screw. Now, aren't too many people have 1.5 millimeter in the toolbox. So what I do is I include a 1.5 millimeter Allen, and that little blue paper on there is, I got really tired of going to my toolbox and digging through all my Allens to come up with the right Allen for JRZs. And I finally said, I'll just put this blue tape on it so I can find it right away. So, and it's also because it's so small, it makes it tougher to lose. So I just automatically, for the 1.5 millimeter Allens that we send out with the JRZs, I flag it just like I do my own. So, and then of course, stickers. We've got all the strange stickers. They're the iBox stickers for shocks are in the bag. You can GRZ stickers. And this is the cool thing about GRZs. They kind of come with this 2 mats on the top of the box, which are really handy for your bench. But I keep telling you about these are kind of built to order. Well, this set was hand built by and tested by, okay, you guys can see that here, see that signature. Maybe wood, huh? Maybe wood something, but it was signed off by, this has to be BB. So every set of shocks is hand built to order and tested and then signed off, which make them, they're a really premium shock. Speed Therapy Academy, April is the next one. I know we had a lot of people that really want us to delay it a little bit. It'll be better with their schedule, so we're doing that. Also, it gives us a little more time to prepare because we got a lot of things to do. We're trying to get this new rear suspension launched, and it's taking a lot. So with that, I see her maybe picking up her computer and coming up here to talk about questions. Oh no, she's answering a text. No, it was an email.
Well, we don't have a lot of questions today.
No, not a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Well, I answered a bunch during the show.
So let's see. Kobe has another question, and this is a long one. I'm going to put it up so you can see it, and I'll read it up. Or do you want to read it? Do you want me to read it?
Where is it?
After 900,000 plus hard miles, my LSD finally failed.
I'm guessing that's limited slip differential,
Yeah.
and not a GM LS motor.
Failed in my S197. I just had it replaced with an Eaton True Track. Just driving it home from the shop, it feels different. Is there any break-in period I need to be aware of? Is there a learning curve involved? I heard it significantly improves handling over the stock LSD. Yeah,
the True Track is torque sensing. We use you made a good choice, by the way. We use Torsons. We used to use Wave Track, but we can't get them anymore. We actually use True Track in our on the 9-inch rear ends for S197s that Strange builds for us. And what it is, it's a torque sensing differential. And what I mean by that is, if you have an open differential, you put your foot down, you make a black mark with one tire. I mean, that's the way it used to be forever. And then they go to positive to posi traction, which in essence is a series of clutches which rub against each other, and they help to make both wheels turn at the same time, but they will wear out. The thing about torque sensing is it's got a whole bunch of like worm gears and planetary gears in there. And in short, long story short, is they actually adjust. They send the torque of the engine to the tire that has the most grip. So, which is kind of opposite of a normal posi. So whatever tire has the most grip is what's going to get the torque. So, in an extreme example, you could start on one wheel on one tire on asphalt, one tire on gravel, and hit the gas. And the tire that's got the most grip is going to get the most torque. So, so as far as it feels different because it's the back of the car is working different. And you're going to find if you drive it on track, it's like, whoa, this really helps a lot. It really helps you on corner exit. Because again, you're waiting for the axle to settle. Traditional like positive traction unit, you got to wait and wait and wait because if you get to the gas too soon, the outside tire gets overloaded and the car gets loose in the back. With a Torsen or the Eaton, you don't have to wait quite as long because it's going to adjust the torque. If you have a rear grip kit 1 with the lower rear roll center and the adjusted geometry, you don't have to wait as long because the car's not going to roll. You're going to be able to get to the gas sooner. So I mean, having that type of differential is a big plus. I think it's interesting you notice a difference because I just drive cars and I've always driven them with torsion, so I don't know that it's been so long since I drove regular. I don't know if I can tell the difference.
So that is it for the questions. Calvin did mention when Ben was talking about the helmets and you were talking about helmet head.
Yeah.
He said you could shave your head.
Well, that always works. And then you pull the helmet off, you got glisten head.
Okay, we do have a question from Annabis that just came up. JRZ R1 compared to, I think it's Maximum Motorsport JR1 coilover, stock rear location versus true coilover. 285 40 18 tires. Does true coilover need bracket upgrade? That sounds like almost a 15-minute.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like a 50-minute. I can tell you in the shortest amount of time. I mean, the JRZs are a European shock. Their primary business is very, very high-end racing shocks in Europe. They are doing, they build like $10,000 racing shocks, not a set, a piece. So they are really high-end. And the way I got associated with JRZ is back in 2011, and my late son Paul in the World Challenge. He was, obviously, for those that know, he just dominated the series. And one of his keys were two keys. One was the brakes. And as you people that follow know, we've actually brought those brakes back in a dramatically improved version, the Pro 4R race brakes we have. That was his brakes for that championship and the JRZ shocks, which I was really amazed. I mean, Paul had amazing racecraft, and he had a tremendous skill of being able to use the curbs. Now, curbs in racing, they can either be your nemesis or your friend. If you know how to use curbs, you can pick up time. If you don't, they can upset the car. If you have a really good set of shocks with really good valving, you can use the curbs. If you don't have a really good set of cars, the curbs are going to upset the car. The JRZs he had, they were the motorsport shocks, were just exceptional. It's just an exceptional race shock. And talking with them, I think his were like $10,000 a set. They're like the cheap motorsport shocks. But that was too much for our people. So, I mean, JRZ went to work and they came out with the RS line. It was not just Mustang. It covers everything now, which essentially European level race shocks kind of brought down to a price point for the club and track day people. There's a lot of other shocks that are made in the United States that, are, I wouldn't say that they're good. There's a lot of good shocks out there, but the big difference with JRZ is, their lineage and their heritage. They go back a long time. It's all race shocks for the street. And I know some of the other shocks, as far as a true coilover versus a pretend coilover, we used to actually make our own coilovers way back when, before coilovers were. Been using coilovers for 25 years, and we used to get the sleeve and drop it onto the Bilstein and the Conies and turn them into a coilover. Obviously, we don't do that anymore because we've got coilovers for S197 and Fox S197, S195, and 550s. We've got coilovers for all of them. But I prefer a true coilover because the body and everything is designed about that. As far as brackets for the coilover, for these JRZs, we don't need a bracket in the back. They retain the OE type bayonet mount, and then as I talked about last week, on the bottom we don't use rubber bushing up against the body. That's Delron, because you're putting a lot of load right into that point. We do use really hard rubber on top to get some dampening, but we don't have to shift over. I mean, we have same thing with our strange. We retain the bayonet mount, so it's just easy. Just bolt them in.
Okay, just want to make one comment. We have a ton of viewers that view the replay, and I just want you to know, the replay viewers, that if you have a question from any of the Cars and Coffees, or especially the last one, just put it in the comments and we'll follow up with you. We view those a couple times a week just to make sure we're catching everybody's questions.
We're also sending them in, if you're in Speed Therapy Society, you can send your questions in through there. Mm-hmm. So I think I got through everything. Next week, I'm all the way down to next week. Speed Therapy Academy starts in April. I said that the last or next to the last Thursday in February, we'll do the reveal on the new rear suspension. It's going to blow your minds, especially when I tell you how good it works. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody. Left-handed signs. You're on left-handed signs again. Oh, thank you. Thanks for all you impact people. You had that. Never mind. So thank to our viewers. I really appreciate you guys being here. Share if you like what I'm talking about. And thanks for the impact people for being here. Thanks for Ben especially for imparting some of his knowledge. And for those that sign up for the Academy, you're going to see him again doing a full explanation of safety in the Academy. And next week, pros and cons of V6 versus V8. It's kind of going to be the discussion. And we already saw Paul Shocks, and he's actually going to be a customer spotlight, talking about his experience with Kenny Brown suspension on his V6, and it's kind of a chuckle. I had a good time talking with him. So with that, look forward to seeing you next week. Remember, register for the reveal starting next Saturday. Next Saturday. And with that, send in your questions, and it's been a great day, and we will see you all next week.